All right, welcome back to another Wright Stew podcast. I am Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright.
And Brian, it's all over. Uh,
Dude.
Super Bowl Sunday, maybe average bowl Sunday. Not the game we had hoped for or expected, but nonetheless, always a fun event to watch.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Eagles of Philadelphia. Fly
I'm
Eagles
not
fly.
I'm not I'm not congratulating them. They're not likable fan base. It almost convinced me to pull for Kansas City, even though I don't want to say I'm anti-dynasty, but I was starting to get that way, almost too much Kansas City. You had kind of convinced me to pull for something that had never happened before, which would have been the
Yeah.
three-peat. You kind of got me on board with that, and the Eagles fans being so unlikable had kind of got me on board for that as well. And so, yeah,
But then you see the guys on the team. Coach Sirianni seems very likable.
I don't
We
know, does he? How does he?
it sounds like he does. I know Will Shipley personally. He is a very
Oh, for
likable
sure,
individual.
for sure.
Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I know him personally. Very likable fellow. A lot of likable fellas on the team. But you're right. That fan base is just. Man, I can't think to imagine how obnoxious and just crazy they're going to be, and I think we've started to see some reports coming out of Philadelphia, and there's going to be some pole climbing. There's going to be some pole climbing,
I would
and
imagine that's going to be a little bit less considering the last time we had pole climbing, a guy died. I would maybe.
yeah.
You
Well, the
think?
mayor of Philadelphia actually released a statement. I think it was Saturday night, urging the people of Philadelphia, not to climb poles. So
Yeah.
yeah, so crazy times in Philadelphia, but congratulations to the Eagles. So Brian, the game really dominated by the Eagles from the get-go, man. Their defense was putting the pressure on. Really didn't get Mahomes and the Chiefs didn't get past the 50 until the third quarter. Like they were just dominated, man. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
just that defensive line. You made me think about, you mentioned during the halftime show, it's like, dude, this feels like going back to the 90s with the music and different things, a lot of rap and really the game forever on Madden football games. They talk about the divisional series actually being the better game.
Yeah.
And now that's changed over the years. There's been some historic games
There's
really
been some
since.
good Super Bowls. But yeah, there was that run in the 90s when the Niners blew out the Broncos, or the blew out the Chargers, and then
Yeah.
the in the 80s you had the Bears crushing the Patriots, and the Cowboys beat the Bills bad a couple times. The Redskins beat the Broncos, but there was a bunch of Super Bowls in the 80s and 90s that just weren't really competitive games. And then there's been a good string of really competitive, close one possession games. Really, a lot recently. There was the Seahawks Broncos game a couple years ago. The Panthers Broncos game wasn't super close, but realistically, there's been a lot of really good games, good Super Bowl games. So, but this one, yeah, Mahomes and the Chiefs, they just couldn't get the offense going. Man, shut out at halftime. I don't. I mean,
First
that
time
was
ever in his career. First time ever in his career. He's been
yeah.
shut out in a half in any, playoffs or regular season.
Probably, honestly, probably been his entire life. I can't imagine. Maybe a time in Pop Warner when he didn't score a touchdown or something like that, but probably his entire life because he's been pretty good for a long time. So big win by the Eagles. So you did mention the halftime show, Brian. What'd you think of the Kendrick Lamar show?
It just wasn't for me. I don't know if I'm to the age where just the music. There's been some really good halftime shows, but maybe I don't feel like it was made for me. Getting ready to be 45, I feel like maybe it's made for like 40 and younger or hip guys, kind of like you.
Mm,
That
I was
that
so we were watching at home, so it was just my wife and my 13-year-old son and my wife, and I kind of said, man, it feels very niche. Like it feels
But
like
you
it's
liked
hitting.
it.
I liked the performance. I thought it was good. I didn't know all the songs. I like Kendrick Lamar. I know he's very talented, but it felt very much if you're 25 or younger, hits you
Maybe
really
that's
hard.
I feel like that was the audience. I'm
Yeah.
okay not being the audience. The bigger disappointment outside of the the game itself, where the commercials I thought were really, really struggling. I mean, it didn't feel like there were none. There was maybe one or two that I kind of felt a little twinge of emotion.
Yeah.
Probably the worst commercials I've seen as far as entertainment factor slash funny slash, kind of soul touching in the last 15, 20 years. It was none, you know, I shouldn't say none. There was one or two that were okay.
Yeah, I
Um,
like towards the end they had the David Beckham one with the Matt Damon. That one was pretty funny. Matt Damon, boots the ball over the moon or
and
whatever he
again,
did.
if you didn't know Matt Damon's politics, and I texted you this, if you didn't know his politics, that would have been by far my favorite one. Just when you put your name out there as politics, it's hard to differentiate that. For years and years and years, I was able to do it, but now knowing where he stands and where I stand, it just made it difficult for me to appreciate it. And even I texted you, I was like, dude, that would have been really good. It's really well thought out. Hey, do you even know what were they advertising?
It was Stella Artois, the beer,
Oh
because
yeah, that's right.
you got
That's
good
right.
taste. Yeah, I like the Bud Light, the Shane Gillis, Post Malone, Peyton Manning,
But again, that one's
the
kind of
cold
tainted
stuff.
in my mind too. That one's tainted too. That one's really
Well,
good. Bud Light's
Bud
really
Light,
trying hard.
they're trying to bring it back around. They're trying to bring it back around. Yeah, they're
Hey, would you mow your yard with that
that
cooker
smoker.
slash cooler? Yeah.
I don't know if I have enough turning radius in my yard for that bad boy. Yeah, I would give it a shot if I had more room. The fence
Yeah,
would
and I know
probably get
I
knocked
know you're
around.
not a alcohol drinker at all, but it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was good. I did so I did like the cancer one with the I mean again it's hard to see like something with cancer, but it was a hey, we need to defeat cancer. It was the little kid coming out with the boxing gloves on, like had just won a match. It was playing I'm gonna knock you out by LL Cool J. Um, and I just lost my mother-in-law in November to cancer, and it kind of hit close to home. But that was just for me a little emotional, and seeing that, and knowing some of those stories, as you learn about that, and especially with kids and cancer, it's
In
just
my mind, and here's the problem with me, Paulie. My mind is so tainted now, maybe with politics, but it's like, you wonder, and this goes down a different road, and we may not want to go here, but just like even cancer has become political almost because could
yeah.
they have solved it? You know,
Well,
and,
big
and
pharma and that sort of thing, and that's what that commercial was talking about. Like, hey, we've released some different cancer drugs. We're trying to
and they've done.
help people. Yeah,
I don't know. It's all become kind of intertwined, right? So it has an influence
yeah.
on how you view things now, and it's not how it used to be. Again, the Super Bowl. I didn't think I was that old, but I feel like maybe some of that stuff was not geared towards me anymore, dude. And
Well,
that's okay.
and then
Yeah.
there was one Anheuser commercial with the horses. My wife was happy to see that. We talked about that. No McDonald's commercials. Doritos had the one with the aliens trying to steal the.
Oh, that was probably my favorite. That was
You're a
my
big
favorite.
Dorito guy.
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
Dorito fan. Yeah. No Pepsi, no Coke. I don't remember seeing Pepsi or
There
Coke.
was, I think there was one Coke one because it was talking about tab. It had tabs
Oh
in the
yeah, at
first
the very
half.
beginning. That's right. The Coca-Cola, the AI, the computer,
Yep.
that one. So that was okay. Nothing
Yeah.
crazy there.
Yeah.
Expect a little more out of Coke and
Yeah.
Pepsi for those sort of things. So, but yeah, nothing real. I did kind of like the Jeep Harrison Ford one as well. That one was.
Again,
Oh,
Harrison Ford is tainted in my mind too. You know,
yeah, I mean he's Han Solo and Indiana Jones to me. I
and
don't.
and Indiana used to be like one of my like nostalgia type
He
movies.
was your guy. Yeah.
And again, he's kind of tainted with his political speak. But again, well thought
We
out.
need to
I
set.
think
We need to compartmentalize a little better here, Brian.
I used to could when I was an athlete. I could truly separate, but now the older I get, it all goes to this one big box and it all gets jumbled up. And so yeah. I mean, I still can with athletes for the most part. I think that's the reason basketball we talked about is not
Yeah.
as in the forefront because it is you do feel their politics sometimes. But dude, it is a that one if it would have been 15 years ago, that was been a great commercial. It's very
Yeah.
well thought out, and last name's Ford, and he kind of whispers that.
Alex said, but my name's Ford. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
clever.
yeah.
I thought
I
that was
mean, it was
good.
really well written. It's just now, as where I'm at as a person, it just feels like you see what these people really are, And
Yeah.
anyway, that's on me. I know we don't want to go down that route, but anyway.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's fair. I mean, but if you're thinking it, there's probably a few 100,000 other people thinking the same thing, or maybe
Yeah.
like legitimately millions of people, right? So it's a fair thought and a fair concept, and it goes back to advertising and marketing and some of these things that I'm sure people at that level think about. It's like, well, if we hire this person, how many people are we offending, like legitimately, or how many people are going to side the other direction because of
Or how many people are
choosing?
instantly turned off, right? And I think, you know, I think there were so during COVID and during those years, there were so many people that were just so crazy that and they didn't care what I thought when they were expressing their opinions. And
Yeah,
so, and not that anybody really cares about my opinion, but I can't support
somebody
them.
does, Brian. We
Yeah.
got people listening every day
Hey,
that
well,
care.
I got you, Paulie. We got our 42 people that listen
I got you.
daily.
Yeah, here we go. So again, congratulations to the Eagles. I think the Kendrick Lamar. I think overall a good performance, a niche performance. I think it hit a certain crowd. I like when they bring in other people to kind of tie in different kind of generations. And I don't know who that would
They
have been.
did none of that.
Yeah, it
And I
wasn't.
also saw, I don't want to say this wrong, but there was some type of flag that's supposedly not shown on the national broadcast that I saw on Twitter that may have been a little bit controversial. And so, anyway, I don't know if that's factual or not, but anyway, I do think it's everything has been so heavily political. It hadn't been that long ago, Polly, where we would have all kinds of different people and different thoughts, and you didn't necessarily even know what their politics were. I can remember, that when you go to parties and you don't really know people or don't know them well, you don't talk about politics and religion, and that was kind of the thing for a really long time. And I feel like that has changed, and people kind of got to the point now where if you lay yours out there and you're critical of mine, I can lay mine out there and be critical of you, and
Yeah.
it's really divided us. Hopefully, there's some type of middle ground we get back to, but it's different than it
It's
used to be.
always when you're meeting people or at some sort of social engagement. There's kind of some questions you can ask and kind of feel around and
And
know
you're
what people.
probably better at that than I am for sure.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But I just kind of ask
You're
some
much
questions.
more. You're a better person. I keep telling you that.
I'll stay in
Yeah,
the middle and I'll let people vent and say their thing. It
yeah.
doesn't
You
it's,
you're
it's not
good.
going to change the way I live my life. So
That's right. That's right. That's the right
I'm
attitude.
fine with it. So, but yeah, man. So I think not the game we were hoping for. Halftime performance was fine. Commercials underwhelming, but you know what, Brian? You know where we move on from here?
Baseball season.
Baseball season. So we introduced a new segment last week called "Athletes You Should Know,"
Yes.
and so we're bringing it back again today. We're going to do this every Monday. So the athlete you should know this week for us is a guy named Steve Dowkowski. So Steve Dowkowski never made it to the big leagues, made it to AAA for parts of a couple of years. But they had different levels. They had A, B, C, D. He played some different levels of minor leagues. But Steve Dowkowski was known as one of, if not the fastest pitcher of all time. So he's kind of myth, kind of legend, and clearly he's a real person, but undersized. So 5'11", a buck 70 as we put it. And here's part of it. He played from 1957 to 1965. The only footage of him is of like him playing high school football. There's nothing of him pitching on video, no
Wow.
camera, so you can't try to even validate it through video evidence. But they said so. Cal Ripken Sr. played with him in the minor leagues and said he thought he threw 110 to 115 miles an hour.
Which I've heard is physically impossible to throw, like genetically, biomechanically harder than like 108. But I'm not arguing any of that. Who knows what
And
the
so that's
limitations are of the
again,
body.
you can't. This is all hearsay. This is all. Ted Williams faced him one time in spring training. Said by far the hardest person I've ever seen. Lou Brock said he faced him one time. Ball hit the brim of his hat, spun his hat around on his head, and didn't want to step in there again. But so Steve Dalkowski, so while throwing very hard, had very little control.
Uh,
Uh,
Hey, were we wearing helmets at that point, Paulie,
No,
or are we
no, this was
still?
hats.
Yes.
This was just hats. So
Oh,
I'm gonna read off. I'm gonna read off some numbers here that are just like for me super incredible, right? So his at 19 years old, he played in a few different levels of minor leagues. Pitched 104 innings, only gave up 46 hits. Brian, pretty
pretty
impressive.
good. I do know that.
But he walked 207 batters,
Oh,
and he struck out 203. So
that's that 1-to-1 they like, but just
that's
not
pretty
the 1-to-1.
impressive.
Yeah.
All right. Uh, the next year, 1958, only pitched 62 total innings. Only gave up 29 hits, Brian. Nobody was hitting him. But he did walk 112. So basically 2 walks per inning. And he struck out 121. Yeah,
Wow.
basically 2 strikeouts an inning.
Wow.
Let's skip down to 1960. Through 170 innings, gave up a few more hits, 105. Still pretty good. But he walked 262 guys.
Holy smokes, dude.
Also struck out 262 guys. So that's 13.9 walks and strikeouts per game.
Not great.
No,
Yeah.
no. So he was, I mean, he was all over the place. And they said, so Ron Shelton, the guy who wrote and directed Bull Durham,
I did see this when we were talking.
loosely based Nuke LaLoosh, Tim Robbins' character, on Steve Dalkowski. And so there was, back then there was no pitch count, there was no, none of this one, right? So in one game, he pitched into extra innings, struck out 27 guys, walked 16, threw 283 pitches.
Holy cow, dude.
283.
Somebody would be shot and fired if anybody ever threw over probably 150 nowadays.
Well, there was that kid. Remember the kid from was it Stanford last year that did that in the College World Series?
And they wanted to hang him up, dude, by his Achilles. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. So some really incredible numbers, and so there was also. So we think he threw 110. We think he threw 115, right? Clearly, he was throwing like 98, 100. Like he was throwing the mess out of the ball.
Very hard for that time.
But there was ways to measure speed, but not like what we have today.
Okay.
So the only time they measured it, he was in Stockton, California, and they had some sort of military device where he had to throw it through like a hole or a slot in a board, and then it measured. All right, so we're talking about this guy who can't throw a strike. So he had pitched the night before through a complete game, then went to this testing facility, was throwing off flat ground. Took him like 40, they said 40 minutes to throw one through the thing.
Gosh, his arm was hanging too.
And still clocked it at like 93.8 miles an hour, is what they said.
Day after
Throwing probably 150 pitches.
Or 200, yeah.
And then they tested it too, not like we do now, like right out of the hand, but that was tested, 10 feet away from the plate or, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
So again, just that's the only time it was ever officially measured.
What a travesty he never made it to the big leagues. It's kind of surprising that he never got a cup of coffee and just see how he performed.
I think he would have killed somebody.
And that probably was a real threat. But man, what dominance, dude. If somebody, you feel like in today's time, with as much as we're into mechanics and how the body works and sequencing and front foot lands here, you feel like maybe if he was been born, 50 years later, they would have figured it out eventually.
And it'd be interesting to see too what some of his kind of his stretch regiment was, or if he just got up there and chucked it, or what he did as a kid. So there's actually, and I'm going to order this book, but there's a book called Dalco: The Untold Story of Baseball's Fastest Pitcher. It's 3 guys kind of combined to write it: William Dembski, Alex Thomas, and Brian Vikander. So I'll add it to my summer reading list, but sounds like
do like a book club. We could do a book club.
Oh, a book club. Maybe we'll do a book club. Yeah. And but man, just could you? I mean, he's left-handed, Brian. What
Oh my
what are you,
gosh.
what are you doing in the batter's box as a lefty with this guy throwing
Oh, dude, this guy's killing people. Dude,
110
I'm
at you?
probably pulling the John Kruk from back in the day and
Turn it around
just
the other
swinging,
side. Yeah.
yeah, or switching around to the other side because I'm not hitting him. And and let's be honest with it, especially in pro ball, that's where I felt like you got more to the specialty lefties that had that really low arm slot.
Yeah.
And even then, you had to fight like crazy to keep that side in because there is a little bit of fear that you're fighting, right? There's a little bit because it feels like it's coming at your head, and all of a sudden it's over the middle of the plate. And there is some mind games you got to play. And there's just my son switch hits. No part of that, dude.
Yeah.
That's incredible, dude. Incredible.
And so and really sad after baseball, it was essentially an alcoholic, kind of got into some migrant work and things like that. They actually, Earl Weaver was one of his coaches or managers in the minor leagues, legendary Orioles
Wow.
coach. And they did some sort of IQ test and found out like his IQ was pretty low. And so they thought it might have been, yeah, that might have played a factor into him not throwing strikes. But so became alcoholic, had, I guess they said dementia because of the alcohol, and then actually died of COVID in 2020. So
Oh wow.
yeah,
So he lived a long life, maybe not full, and I'm sure
yeah, it sounded like a really
baseball back in
sad
those
kind
days,
of.
and really even through our times. I mean, baseball. I mean, we hear the stories of Wade Boggs, how many beers he drank,
Yeah.
flying from West Coast to East Coast or East Coast to West Coast, and it really was. And I feel like it's changed here in the last 5, 6, 8 years as people have really woken up to what alcohol can do to your body, especially as an
Yeah,
athlete. But for the longest time, baseball was kind of the worker drinker man sport, right? You go out
yeah,
and play your butt off in 95-degree temperature, then you go have a few toddies with the boys, and
yeah. Well,
I feel like
yeah. There was a
it
lot
has
of.
changed.
I remember I had in '98, my manager was Don Money, and pitching coach was Randy Kramer, and then our hitting coach was Floyd Rayford. So all three played in the big leagues.
Yeah.
And our clubhouse, so I was in Beloit, Wisconsin. Our clubhouse was bad, really bad. Just not a great setup, terrible stadium. The whole thing was just not good. And guys, it's like as soon as the game was over, showered and got out of there because we didn't have food, and we just wanted to get out of there. Like, why would we hang out there? And I remember they would get mad at us. The coach, because they're like, why don't you guys stick around? You're like because they all played in the 70s and 80s. They associated being a team as hanging out in the clubhouse, drinking beers after the game, and forming bonds that way. And we're like, we we don't want to hang out in this danky old clubhouse. There's nothing to do here. And besides, like legitimately, like I was 19 at the time. Like there's several guys who are under 21. I'm like, we can't. Like they did drink, but it's like we're not going to sit here and drink.
Well, yeah, and it's not. And
Yeah,
again, you come from a lifestyle. I'll say this. So Torey Lovello, the manager for the Diamondbacks, was
yeah,
my coach with the Indians in the high A ball when I was playing. And the rule was, I think he had just went through a divorce at the time, and so the rule was like when you went out and hung out, whoever got there first. And so that was the culture, right? It wasn't that you didn't do it. It was, hey, if we got there first, if we were on the road and got there first, you get back in, you got to go somewhere else, and vice versa. And so Chris Bando was my manager in high A ball, and
yeah.
and
Oh,
he did.
Sal brother. Yeah,
Yeah, he was not a boozer. He was a Christian, lived it, and so we didn't never have those kind of situations in high A ball, but we did have those situations in A ball where if we're out on the road and they beat us there for whatever reason, the rule was we left. And so again, that culture I think has changed, and I'm sure back in the 50s, 60s that was the culture. You know.
yeah. And there was, I want to say it was Josh Hancock. So the Cardinals, was Bush Stadium for a long time,
Yeah.
and they allowed, and I think every big league team allowed beer in the clubhouse. And so Josh Hancock actually died after a game. He, I think, had a few pops and then drove home and died. He was probably, I don't know if he was drunk. I think maybe, but texting, ran into the back of a car, died. And so the Cardinals said, hey, no more alcohol in the clubhouse. And I think a lot of teams took that stance after that.
I
And
mean,
then
it's really a bad idea. You go out there and sweat
yeah,
your butt off. I mean, it really is. I mean, once alcohol became illegal to drink and drive, which is the 80s, I've seen some Instagram videos, and it was showing like people in like 81 or 82, and they were upset. It's like, hey, you go to work and you should be able to have a
I
couple
can't
beers
drink
on the
beer
way
on the way
home.
home. Yeah, I've seen those. Fun. It's kind of funny, but like kind of sobering. But then, and I remember too, like on that was always kind of a big deal as well. Like on you get on those long bus rides, and guys wanted to drink on the bus, and some managers kind of let it go, and other managers were pretty hardcore, like no, because you get off the bus, and then you've got to get in your car and drive to your apartment.
That's right.
Right. And like you're on a bus, that's all you're playing cards and drinking. Like
Right.
that's potentially right. And that didn't always happen, but was on some of those buses where it did happen. They did allow it and um never affected me. But yes, it's definitely something you've got to think about and consider. And but I think there's like I said, there's more education on it now than ever, right? And so it's just kind of a crazy time. So Steve Dalkowski, the athlete you should know. And if you're watching on YouTube, Brian's got his hat on. I got my shirt on. Let me show you the back of this. Look at this. You see the back of it there, Brian?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a mirror. It's like looking
It's speaker
at your
studio on there.
speakers, looking at speakers on your back. Yeah,
Speakers within
we got it.
speakers. So hey, go check out the merch shop. We've been selling some t-shirts, some hoodies, some hats. I'm really excited about that. And then make sure you're subscribing, liking, and everything on all the socials, all the podcasts. We appreciate that. Anything else, Brian?
No, that's it, baby.
That's it. All right.
Out, go back.